as public relations professionals, we are to be as neutral as possible. But remember, emotions are high, logic is low. And in crisis situations, the most important thing is to always ensure that we do not make decisions in haste.
Welcome to the Smart Talk series, the show for professionals who want strategies, tips, and real talk about all things PR, marketing, and social media. Your host is Melissa Vela Williamson, an award-winning, accredited, and nationally recognized PR pro and communication thought leader. And now your host, Melissa Vela Williamson.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Talk series. I'm Melissa Vela Williamson. This season, our focus is on passing the mic. Today, I'm joined by Anais Biera Miracle. Anais is a Chief Communications Officer for Southwest Key Programs, one of the largest Latino-led nonprofit organizations in the United States. She is responsible for providing leadership and strategic vision for the communications department, which oversees strategic communications, crisis communication, social media, media relations, multimedia, and internal communications. Anais has more than 18 years in the field of public relations. Welcome, Anais.
Hey, Melissa, it's wonderful to be with you.
Hey, what you all don't know, listeners, is that Anais and I go way back.
Yes.
Maybe all those 18 years, Anais. What do you think?
Well, I was sharing before that I was like, at least 15 years. At least we probably
Right.
celebrated quinceañera, you know?
Time for a dance. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Probably as soon as you joined the Public Relations Society of America San Antonio chapter, or maybe came to an event. And, good people know good people. So we were certainly attracted to each other as friends, and we've become really lifelong friends, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But on top of that, I've always been so impressed by Anais's grace, particularly under pressure and handling some of what I find the most sensitive topics when caring for people through our profession. So, Anais, tell us more about your background and what you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for the invitation. And it's just an honor to be with you. As you had mentioned, 18 years in the field of public relations. And my career has really primarily been in San Antonio. I'm currently in Austin. I moved here a little more than a year ago to join the Southwest Key familia, if you will. So my experience is in the field of public relations. I started out in nonprofit work. I used to work for Sarah Jobs for Progress. I did community relations and communications there. I also worked in the space of advertising. So I worked for Bromley Communications. It was at the time known as Bromley. And I learned under Debbie Charnes, quite frankly, really kind of what grit was in PR space and advertising. And then I ended up going into the area of public relations, public affairs, helping to work in the space of government relations. I had a career nearly 13 years at the children's shelter, and I worked under the leadership of Annette Rodriguez. And that's really where I grew in a myriad of leadership opportunities. And so I was there as a chief public relations officer. Obviously, my expertise is in crisis communications, media relations, strategic communications, multicultural marketing. And here at Southwest Key, I've been able to really kind of reshape the communications department to be a very flexible and nimble communications team that can adapt to the needs of the organization. It is one of the largest Latino-led nonprofit organizations in the United States. And it's an honor to be able to be in this position, and I get the opportunity to mentor and coach and to cultivate the new generation of PR experts. And it's an amazing experience.
That's fantastic. If any of you read my column for PRSA Cultural Strategy, it's called Cultural Strategy. It's in the Strategies and Tactics magazine. I did feature Anais in a column, and I had written, my original column was rebranding Latino leadership. And it was really about trying to demystify and normalize the fact that, while you may have a different ethnic background than the majority at your workplace or in the room, as they say, it doesn't mean that you're any less of a leader. In my opinion, you can be more.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to verbally tell this story a little bit, Anais, if you don't mind, just because I have such a great reaction to people in my LinkedIn comments and whatnot. But a professional reached out to me and said, your column inspired me. I need to work a little harder. We have this Latino-led organization, and we're struggling to find a PR person, a communication person at this top level for it. We haven't had any applicants. And, when he described it, I was like, shout out to Evan Zeppo. I was like, that sounds like my friend Anais, right? I didn't even see myself in that role. I said, wow, that is a tremendous, huge role. You're working with children. That would tear my heart up, but I want to help. And I know someone. So Anais, like, you actually rose to the opportunity. And I just want to underline the courage it takes to do that, especially as a Latina, because our history and track records show that, one, we haven't had such opportunities often. And two, when we had, there were other things that kept us from raising our hands. So you, with some encouragement, which I also think is a big part of our culture, is that we want to hear from people that we know and trust to evaluate opportunities like this. But, you took that opportunity, you went for it. And what a leader to move your family and make that assessment. And you'll learn something tremendous from this. I know you already have. But I just want to underline the courage that takes for that, because I think in other situations, in other families, it's very normal within the family to go away to school, go away for a job. But lots of times in the Latino community, that's not how we're brought up.
Mhm. Yeah, you can't really see me, but I am tearing up a little bit. And I have to say, Melissa, I mean, you've been a longstanding, not only friend, but a mentor of mine. And for having the faith and the grace and confidence in me to even mention my name, I think is truly a humble honor.
Mm,
And my parents always instilled in me to be able to feel comfortable, that you don't have to necessarily stay very close to the nest, if you will. And so having that kind of support, it's invaluable. And I truly have to say, I have a very supportive spouse, my husband and daughter, who believed in me and said, yes, we will move, because you have to have their unconditional support. Now, San Antonio and Austin are in two entirely different cities, and they have their own unique charms to them. But also, I do have to say, I'm very blessed with an incredible familia family here at Southwest Key Programs. And
mhm.
so sometimes it really does take an opportunity for us to even put ourselves, in a situation. So I was actually at the United Nations in December, picked
Wow.
up something that I bought at the bookstore, and it says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And so I actually have it right here on my desk. So I can read it every day, right? And
Mhm.
that's just a reminder to say, I've ingrained in our team that we have to be adaptable. We have to be flexible. We have to be nimble at any point in time. And that even in the space of communications, sometimes maybe we're so comfortable being behind a computer, but a lot of our work actually happens in the field. And so I always encourage staff and go out there and meet staff across the United States, meet them where they are, get to know them, get to know our work, because we can only do so much from behind a computer when we really do need to go ahead and put our tennis shoes on and really kind of hit the pavement and really kind of get to know the work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I resonate with a lot of what you're saying. And I will highlight too, for some of our newer pros in the field, that's one of the challenges I'm seeing as I mentor and work with interns. And then we start an apprenticeship program. And just this newer pro is that not everything's going to be done in a nice, neat little box. Building a relationship means you have to, in some ways, become people's ally or friend. And a lot of the great, wonderful opportunities I've had with professionals, particularly journalists, is because I've befriended them
Mhm.
by doing the work shoulder to shoulder next to them, helping them with their Hispanic Journalists or Professional Journalists Association or their gala, or being a source and offering an opportunity that had no kind of positive ROI for me other than just that friendship quarter, right, in our bank.
Mhm.
So I think that's what's been challenging is I'm like, hey, go to that event, go meet these people. And the little bit of extra,
Mhm.
I think it's been harder to promote, particularly during the pandemic years that we've had than normally. And then people are getting very comfortable with being at home or being remote. And that's great. I mean, I love
Mm.
being able to focus and work wherever. But there are other times, like you said, that you've got to get out there and actually meet people where they are. And there's that warm, you share the nonverbals. Gosh, I can say to someone in 5 minutes when I'm standing by them than I can over an hour in Zoom.
Absolutely.
It just kind of matters. And that's part of the mentoring is us teaching those around us to be nimble and flexible, because
Mhm.
working in communications, no matter what side of the house you sit on or want to sit on, you've got to be dynamic. You've got to be flexible.
Mhm.
I was teaching one pro about media relations, and this person was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm really interested in learning and doing that." And they started doing some of the work, and it was like, some messages or whatever came after 5. And it was that work-life balance. Don't do anything after 5. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, I've gotten a DM in Facebook Messenger right after I gave a big talk from a reporter. And then right before I turned the car on, I made sure I flipped that to the right person. And like, you just handle it when you need to.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a tough part of our profession. In fact, our next guest will be about health and wellness when you're working here. But being nimble, I think is a good thing. And then just making sure like you've got some healthy boundaries when it's absolutes, right?
Absolutely. And I think I always say that I work 24/7, right? Because that's just kind of the nature of the work. And that's the way I've worked. That's not for everyone, but that's the mentality that I have. And you're being held accountable for situations or things that happen. You're thinking through strategy. So, in terms of media relations, whether it's a media pitch or something relevant that's happening in the news right now, agenda setting, whatever it is, things just do not happen from 9 to 5. But news happens 24/7. There's things that occur at all times. And so for us, it's not to not be inflexible or not to have compassion, right? It really is just be able to ensure that we are being as open and amenable to the
Mhm.
needs of the organization. But I think Melissa, you bring up a good point. So for example, going out there and hearing the stories of the work that we do, right? And hearing the stories from staff about their passion of what they like to do. You're not going to get that from sending out an email to say, "Can you please send me information about who you are and what you do?" No, you're going to be hearing their stories about what they like and why do they like this organization and what calls them to this work. And that's because going out there and conducting focus groups or going out there and doing communications audits, this gives you the visibility and transparency in the field because that matters the most. And being able to be okay with doing that type of work.
Mhm.
You're not going to be doing this from behind the computer. I mean, we really do have to strategize and plant the seed with new PR pros of saying, yes, I understand that there is a luxury to be able to work from home. But as you mentioned, there's something dynamic to be said when you can work as a collaborative team and to work collaboratively and be able to learn and glean from each other.
Yeah, and I think you probably do it naturally because you've always been a win-win type person. I mean, you've always wanted to have that two-way relationship. I do. I always pick up things from both sides. So even when I'll get a comment that I'm like, well, I wouldn't have done it that way, or we didn't do that. But on the reverse side, too, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I do need to put my pin down a little bit. I do need to take a little more time for myself or push back and not always be so accessible, too. So I think there's always that reverse learning. And that's really part of why I featured you as a pass the mic voice, which is in my way, I've heard that saying before, where those who had that opportunity or had the stage pass the mic to those who maybe are unsung heroes or just a really important voice that may not have always been heard in our community or society. But in my book, Smart Talk, at the end of chapter 2, which is the Start Smart with PR Etiquette, you remark on mentoring, ask you that question about why is this important to our career? I think sometimes it feels artificial to people or it's packaged artificially, that it is a formal relationship. But I think you've described some great ways that mentoring plays a part in your life even today. But,
Mhm.
is there any other thoughts you have about how mentoring really matters in terms of our success?
Absolutely, Melissa. It diversifies our thinking when we can ask somebody to say, okay, would you be a mentor of mine? And I've also encouraged my team, the communications team, to be able to find a mentor, right? It's somebody that it's maybe they've gone a different trajectory. You want to learn as to how they got there. Or maybe you aspire to be in their role or aspire to do the work that they're doing currently. But it really is an opportunity as continuing education.
Sure.
So when we can lean on a variety of mentors, and I would highly encourage those that are seeking mentors to be able to do so in a way that maybe they're individuals that don't look like us. Maybe you should find somebody that maybe is not in your age range, maybe somebody they have more experience. And even then, you can still learn so much from somebody who may be younger than you. Being able to acquire that kind of knowledge and that kind of education only enhances your experience and improves your ability to be the best public relations strategist and tactician and as PR people. So I highly encourage those who have considered, a mentor to please try to find somebody that that you can build an authentic relationship with, that that they're going to be able to be there to guide you because there's so many opportunities. I remember my father would always share with me that the knowledge that you have acquired, it doesn't do you any good if you do not share that knowledge with anyone, if you just take it to the grave. And I have had incredible bosses who have poured and invested in me in my professional development and the knowledge I have acquired in my 18 years of experience. I am now investing that into the communications team here at the organization I work at. And it is now my turn to invest in them so that they can advance their careers. And there's no way that I should keep the knowledge I've acquired because it does not advance our people. It does not advance our cause if I just hoard the knowledge I have.
Yeah, I certainly have seen that a little bit where people feel like, well, my knowledge is my value. So I'm going to just keep that to myself. And again, I had mentioned you've tackled some of the topics that I find the most sensitive because you advocate for our country's most vulnerable people, which are children and youth, and those who, in some cases, have been really saved from some unfortunate family situations or bad environments, or, their families trying to help them find a better life in some unfortunate circumstances. So I've always valued your steadiness in that space and your what you bring to crisis communication, which is that calmness and openness to find out more and learn and research, because that's where the humbleness I think should come from, is our willingness to look for a good answer. And so, like, you're right, Anais, like these mentors, we should look at them as guides.
Absolutely.
I found earlier in my career when I worked at Big Brothers Big Sisters that the term mentor seemed to scare off some people, particularly people of color, particularly men of color. Like, it just seemed like such a big word. But if we can look for someone to offer us guidance, and it doesn't have to be a formal, let's have coffee every month kind of situation, but someone that there is you add value to as well and offer guidance or resources or support to.
Mhm.
On that topic, I just want people to really understand how the complexity of what you work with. So can you kind of describe that a little bit for our audience?
Yeah. So I think working for and on behalf of children and youth who were experienced neglect, abandonment, abuse, as public relations professionals, we are to be as objective as possible. We are to be as neutral as possible. Does that mean that we don't show compassion? No. That means that we are compassionate individuals. But remember, emotions are high, logic is low. And in crisis situations, the most important thing is to always acquire facts, is to always ensure that we do not make decisions in haste. I try not to let it overrun my emotions because it can be very difficult to understand where a child's coming from or in terms of what kind of experiences they've had. It gives me joy to be able to understand that as an organization, we're humanitarians, to understand that the work that we do has a significant impact on children, families, lives.
Mhm.
And I have kind of trained myself in the space of public relations that we must, and I believe that we must be neutral and that we must be as objective as possible to ensure that kind of neutrality. That doesn't mean that I have no emotion. That means that, sometimes we do give ourselves grace, right? When things may be difficult and challenging to handle. But again, that takes time and those things will be mastered over the course of your career
Mhm.
because we're humans telling the stories of other human beings. And compassion it should be at the cornerstone of our work. And authenticity is there. And so again, you will learn as new PR pros come into the field, which is exciting, right?
Mm.
Because now you have a new generation of PR pros coming into the field who are going to be our next leaders in this work. And being able to understand how you master your level of emotional intelligence, how you master handling very difficult conversations, how you master crisis communications. And in the face of having to deal with media or having to deal with legislators or external stakeholders, or even your own internal stakeholders, such as employees. And so, how do I rise above the fray of not becoming quote unquote too emotional? Well, I know that the work that I have is meaningful and that I know that to be able to articulate a message, I must do so succinctly with brevity as much as possible, but also making sure that there's compassion in our tone, that we make sure that we do not lose sight of the human touch because we are working on behalf of children and families, and that should always come through in our work.
Mhm. Oh no, that's just fantastic. You can always sense, and even in your voice, you can sense your warmness, but such a calm, steady demeanor. You're just so perfect for this
Oh,
work.
thank you.
And I think that's part of what we need to evaluate throughout our careers. Sometimes we evolve as people, just like our careers can evolve, and we want to try to direct that evolution of our career as much as possible. So knowing thyself, right?
Yes.
And now, Anais, you're a communications leader for a national organization. So does that vantage point shape your leadership approach in a different way?
Well, I mean, I think I've evolved. I think even though I'm part of a national organization that does have national presence, you do adapt your leadership to ensure that there is that level of flexibility and also a level of refinement, right? Of being able to articulate, communicate as efficiently as possible because you're working in a very dynamic situation across multiple states, across multiple time zones, and you're working with different chiefs. You're working with different leaders who come from very different backgrounds. And there's not quite a bit of Latina representation at the chief communications officer level across the United States. And I think it is our purpose to be able to curate and cultivate the next generation of chief PR officers, chief communications officers.
Right.
And so my leadership style has evolved more so in the past year and a half to even become more self aware, to even become much more having a higher level of emotional intelligence, making sure that we are adaptable to the needs of the organization and even going across the country and conducting focus groups. And I've met with staff members and I do this across the country and I meet them where they are. I meet them on first shift, second shift, third shift, which is overnight and even weekends.
Wow.
And people are like, why are you doing? I'm like, because I need to know, what the gaps in communication
Mm.
are. And so again, I can't do that through an email. I need to be able to conduct focus groups. And where are they? Well, they're in the field. And so for me, it's that adaptive leadership. I think I've been a servant leader for a number of years, and that still holds true today. But that adaptive leadership, that transformational leadership is where you get to understand, like, okay, if this doesn't work, well, then we need to course correct it this way. And really kind of retesting and testing and retesting again, because you may think in theory it works. And then when you get to where you are, what you're working on, it may be an entirely different situation that you're going to have to go back and retest situations or redo things again. And so I think adaptive leadership in this position is something that takes you very far. Being self aware and being mindful, having that kind of high level of emotional intelligence that when emotions are high, logic is low, and to be able to ensure that keeping calm and not taking things personally. We always say that, like in business, it's not personal. But there's a truth to that. It is work, it is what you do, it is not personal, and it's not to be personalized because you are here to reach objectives and goals and SMART goals and you're here providing leadership for a team and they lean on you for guidance. They lean on you for leadership and to be able to provide a safe work environment. But you're also there to tap into their creative brain, to be able to reach them to their North Star. And so, when I first started, I did ask, what's your true north? What is it that you find passion? What do you love to do? And one was a graphic designer and said, oh, I like branding. Okay, good. No, that changed. Her job title changed because that was her forte. The next one was a graphic designer, but he really liked videography, graphics, and animation. Now he's a multimedia specialist 3. And so as a leader, you are to bring the staff or to bring the fire. You are to elicit, you're to bring out the best in them and lead them to a path where they can reach their most potential. And that's what leaders do. And professional development is also very big on our radar. And I always encourage professional development that would improve and they can contribute back to the organization, but that it enhances their educational and career experiences.
Yeah, I think that's all really helpful for them to really think about, well, where do I want to go? What am I best at? And where could I go from good to great there?
Right.
I love it, especially in the beginning, especially as the new leader, especially, right? You have to make all those relationships. So, Anais, we've had a wonderful time reconnecting and telling some backstories and sharing how mentoring matters. I want to ask you, because I love to ask all my listeners this, what does SMART Talk mean to you?
I think SMART Talk gives us the opportunity to have honest dialogue, to be able to be reflective of where we are, where we want to be, where the future is for our space in public relations, and how we can be innovative in our approaches, how we can cultivate the new generation of public relations practitioners, strategists, how we can be able to be mentors and have honest conversations about maybe our challenges, some of the work that we have found, the work that we just truly, truly love, and understanding that having that, it gives us a platform to be able to share our work and what that means for us and giving that. I mean, I think, Melissa, with your expertise, your guidance, you're a true educator. You love to be able to educate and inform people about the work of public relations. And Smart Talk is that kind of platform where we can be able to share best practices, what we've learned. And it's an educational platform, which I think is just incredible because there's so much to share.
Yes, there really is. Thank you. And my big takeaway, everyone, is when emotions are up, logic goes down. That was huge. I'm gonna make sure I reiterate that to clients as we think through things. So thank you. So, Anais, I've enjoyed our conversation, and I know that the listeners may be intrigued about what you do at Southwest Key, how they can support your nonprofit organization, or maybe get some guidance from you. So what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Yeah. So, I mean, they most certainly can send me an email and, that's probably the best way for them to reach me.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Anais, for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for the honor and the opportunity. And I hope that any of the nuggets that I share today resonates with your listeners.
I know they do. Thanks to our listeners for joining me for today's episode. We love diving deep into communication topics to elevate our industry practice. If you'd like to go deeper, you can work with me as a trainer, consultant, or hire my firm for strategic communication planning or PR strategy services. And in case you missed it, Smart Talk, Public Relations Essentials All Pros Should Know is out. You can buy your copy to get my advice, tips, and tools about all things public relations. Available on Amazon, or get your autographed copy at mbw360.com/book. If you've already got your copy, please please leave us a review on Amazon. It would mean the world to us and helps more aspiring pros find the book. And as always, think smart and communicate smart. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Smart Talk series. If you learned something or enjoyed our conversation, share it on social media or send to a friend. To learn more about this and other communication topics, visit mvw360.com. That's mvw360.com.